Yo, what's up? All right, so today we're just going to be reacting to some interesting points that Not So Erudite brought up in her stream yesterday while I was watching. It was basically talking about how people are drawn or pulled into being radicals or pulled into extremism. So yeah, I really found that bit very interesting. So yeah, let's hop into it.
Um, I think Abba does a really good job of outlining what is self evidently an issue, right? I don't really need to go into being things like that level of racism is a problem. It's bad. Yes, disavow racism. What I think is more important here is understanding how I think people's minds get pulled towards extremism over time. I think
Mm,
that's what's really important to talk about here. Well, there's a couple of things. There's a really interesting idea by Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand is a political philosopher, big nerd shit, okay? And I'll draw you a picture, okay? I know you guys love pictures.
yay,
Love pictures.
picture.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
She's got a
pictures.
really interesting idea that I think I want to focus on here for a second, which is understanding how radicalism occurs, right? A lot of people talk about like the PewDiePie pipeline as part of like how radicalism occurs. It's a theory within the streaming space. The problem is that it's not empirical. So what I want to talk about instead is like some empirical understanding of radicalization. So let's start with Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand talks about basically she talks about totalitarian regimes, but also extremism like an onion. I know I'm really bad at drawing. I'll do this instead. Okay. So you've got an onion, and this onion might contain varying. Uh, let's call it white. Let's call it white supremacy for now. Okay, we'll focus on what they're kind of doing.
Okay.
And the issue is what you have is a whole bunch of people that occupy within the space that are increasing levels of extremity, right? This is why there's tons of schisms as well between like various. This is why Richard Spencer, for example, got kicked out by a bunch of groypers when working with when he got into a beef with Nick Fuentes because there
Mm,
are kind of these distinctive camps of extremity. Ayn Rand has a really interesting concept here where she talks about essentially this pull inwards that can occur, which is that out here at the front facing stuff, you're going to hear people talk about like dog whistling and stuff. It's like a low resolution understanding of what Ayn Rand is talking about. Where out here, you have palatable forms. I can't spell. I'm not going to spell it. Palatable. Okay, I'm going to write P.
The behavior of F and F as of late seems uniquely unhinged. This is below even them. Why do this? Are they desperate for views or having a breakdown?
We'll get to maybe talking about Myron specifically because I think this is mostly Myron, right? This isn't really. Is it fresh? Fresh is like, huh, huh. He's just kind of.
hey, you guys leave fresh out of this. Fresh is the mastermind. He's the brain. He's the brain behind the operation. That's why you can't catch him slipping. And every time you catch him slipping, it's because he wanted you to catch him slipping, but he doesn't have meltdowns like this. So leave Fresh alone. Leave him alone. John Zerka will take over. I don't mind. I don't mind. Let Myron go. But yeah, free our boy Fresh. He's doing the best he can. He's doing the best he can. All right.
like along for the ride as always. This is absolutely Myron that I think we need to talk about. So let's go back to this though. The problem is that this is palatable. And when you're in this space, it doesn't seem so bad. It seems okay. And these people, when you be like, well, white supremacy is bad, the main type of individuals that they have exposure to are people
Mm,
not in their worldview and people in their worldview, but not too extreme, right?
mm,
And it leads to kind of this false conception of this outer group to be like, it's not that extreme. It's not really that bad. It's just jokes, man. It's just lighthearted shit. And the problem is, up at this level, it literally probably is mostly that. There's like, they're probably gonna like prefer not to hire black people. They're gonna always try to prefer to hire
damn.
specifically white people for jobs. They're gonna prefer white related things. They like white names, right? So there's some ramifications for sure. They probably make like weird comments all the time about like you know, like they'll meet like a black person and be like, so
It's
you like
all
rapid
jokes,
watermelon, right?
bro.
And you're like, what? Huh?
Like
But
chicken.
they're palatable, which is why they're surface facing, they're the most normal, and
Hmm.
other people engage with them. And then you get to this level, and this level is like all they interact with is typically these people and these people. So they might agree that they're more extreme in their worldviews. They're going to be less palatable to anybody that's out here, but they don't think they're that extreme. They're only interacting with people on either side of themselves, right? And you see this in algorithms, right? Algorithms, the reason why we talk about the pipeline, so it's not because
Hmm.
like YouTube has this evil plot to like direct people into becoming evil. And I don't think PewDiePie is to blame at all. It's because of like this chain of algorithm that begins to collect together. The problem is just because your algorithm recommends somebody who you is like actually problematic, it doesn't mean that you are, right? Because there's going to be, for example, people out here who are just normal, healthy conservatives.
Okay.
The problem is this doesn't allow for any discourse that challenges the assumptive worldview unless you're right out here. This is the only group that's going to get challenged by people outside of their view. So the
Hmm.
problem is that if this person engages in this space for a long time, becomes friends with people, they're slowly going to get pulled down here because they're going to hear jokes, they're going to hear comments, they're even going to hear talking points like being like, well, it is true, you know, look at the crime rates per capita. Black people do more
Hmm.
crime on average than white people. And it's like, that's true. That's literally a statistical fact. They're not going to probably get into any of the nuance about things like poverty and its impact on like intersectional obstacles.
Surprised you read Ayn Rand. You should read her work covering racism. Especially after this stream.
I love her.
Hmm.
So the problem with
I
this
don't know who
whole
that person
system is
but
that there's
okay.
never any challenging, right? There's only opportunity to move forward or back, but there's very, very little interaction. So the issue is that the worldview of this is it's the bubble.
But okay, so but the thing with that I'm thinking of, right? Because again, I haven't. This is like all news to me. So the thing that I'm thinking about is, wouldn't the people in that kind of like middle onion, right? The onion like slightly closer, not the outer onion that gets to interact with people outside of the bubble. Wouldn't those people actually be challenged by those people like that are closest to the outer layer? So they'll be like, oh, this is this, that. Or is it that when those people actually challenge them, right? Let's say, so I'll give you an example. Let's just label these onions as A, B, C, and D. D is like the deadly one. So that's like the inner one. Let's say person A, right? They're still getting challenged by people outside of their bubble. Right? It could be anyone. It could be um uh leftist. It could be other people from other bubbles, right? Challenging this person. But of course, this person is also like kind of they're going back and forth. They have conversations. So wouldn't this person also have the ability to kind of like talk to this person and you know yeah, have some little exposure with this person and then drag them out? Or would it just be that once you get into this ring, your chances of sliding in your chances of like sliding deeper into the bubble, right, or into the echo chamber gets higher and higher. So let's say you're here, your chance increases to like maybe 50%. Let's say you get to this point, your chance gets to like maybe 75. So you're getting, and then while it's increasing your chances to become more radicalized or more extremist, it reduces your chance to kind of like leave the bubble. I don't know if that's how that works, but you know, yeah.
Okay, it's the bubble that Brittany talks about. It's actually a really good language because this is the only world they know. This is why, for example, in a very neutral bubble, academics a lot of the time unironically think, like people in school, like educated professors, these types, they often think that more of the population is educated than actually is because everyone, I'm not saying academics are white supremacy.
Hmm. And that point actually makes a lot of sense because it's like all this time, if you've seen these videos where they ask ladies or all these young women, oh, how much do you think a man makes, or how much do you think the average person makes? And they're like, oh, they make uh 60K or 80K, and then they're baffled when you hear like 40 or 50K, because people within their circle, those are the people that they interact with. So they don't have any experience outside of that circle. And then when they're actually like challenged, it depends on how they now like either accept the information or they kind of pull back into their circles. And then, yeah, I find that very, very interesting.
Okay, so scratch that for because everyone in their circle has some level of education because that's who they interact with, that's who in their world, that's what they're interested in. So that informs their entire conceptualization of the world, okay? Their
Mhm.
entire conceptualization, which is why when we talk about something like fresh and fit going into this shit, we have
Mm.
two bubbles that are nearby each other that are concerning to be interacting with each other, which is going to be kind of this um, I'm going to put anti-woman. I'm not saying everyone who's in the red pill is anti-woman. I'm just using simple language, okay? So I'm saying I'm not sure that people right here are actually white supremacists, right? It's this bubble is nosying up to this bubble and starting to interact, which means you're now giving a whole bunch of these people in this space exposure to all of this. And the
Mm.
problem is, again, if they interact more and more often, there's only a direction that it goes, right? This is why if you're a red pill guy and all you ever watch is red pill content and you almost never have good interactions with women and you're socially unsophisticated, which is why you're probably drawn to red pill content because you have no
Yeah.
success with women, so you're trying to get tips on dating and charisma, and you've probably had multiple negative interactions with women, which is why you're in the space as well, because it reinforces some of your like frustrations and feelings. The problem is that it pulls you all the way in and down and becomes more extreme, right? And this is like the tension that every single platform has to deal with is, okay, well, most platforms, right? Let's see if we can get an X. Is there an X here?
Mm.
No. Okay. Let's draw it. Most platforms ban this, right? This
Yeah.
inner circle, right? Nick Fuentes,
Okay. The
Richard
very,
Spencer,
very
not on
extreme.
YouTube. The problem is the directionality, particularly with the co-partner platforms, right? Which is why this idea of like radicalization is really, really important, but also like vastly misunderstood. Because while a lot of people point to like the algorithm matters, but what really matters is the community connections made, right? So
Mm.
what's getting a person pulled in isn't just watching Fresh and Fit content, right? There's probably tons and tons of viewers of Fresh and Fit who watch this shit and they're like, bro, like I like your stuff in general, but this ain't it, right? It's probably like,
Okay, so before she goes on, when she's talking about the algorithm, I think the algorithm, of course, it has a part to play. Definitely has a part to play because by this time last year, right? By this time last year, I was watching a lot of Sneako content and stuff like that. I was watching Fresh and Fit. I was watching uh Kevin Samuels a lot, like all those things. And I started noticing that there there was a specific way I was viewing things. Yes, I got a lot more jaded, right? But I was viewing things in a very strange light that I hadn't viewed them before, and it was kind of like hampering or messing up some of my relationships, right? So it was pretty strange when I noted it. I was like, oh, this is odd. And then I noticed a switch where I think um Sneeko had on Abba from Abba and Preach, right? And I was like, oh, this guy, like when he was like him, okay, he had Abba and Preach, he had Abba on and he had Destiny on. I was like, oh, these two guys, they actually make a lot of sense and they kind of challenge some of the things that I already believe, which I always find very interesting. So I was like, okay, let me check out their channel. And then I saw like they were more like Destiny was more to the left, right? If we're using left, right, and center. So Destiny was more to the left. Abba and Preach were more to the center, right? And Sneeko was more to the right. So I was like, okay, this is actually like a very balanced combination. So I kept watching three of their videos or their YouTube. I was like, I subscribed and I was watching their YouTube channels, right? So in my mind, I was like, there's kind of like a healthy balance. If I watch something on Sneako's channel and it didn't make sense to me, or I'm like, hmm, and I check Urban Preach and they covered something similar, I'll be like, okay. And then I check Destiny and he has a counter argument. I kind of like merge everything in my mind and then I pick what makes sense to me, um, based on the scenario and all that, of course, with personal nuance. So yeah, I'm not just taking something from one side and taking something from this other side. That's how you become a bot. If you're only doing red pill stuff, or if you're only doing, or if you're only, even if you're only staying on the center, that's how you become a bot. So I was like, yeah, I might as well just combine all three. And from there, my the algorithm started suggesting like different content. So now it doesn't. I don't even have any issue with completely red pill or completely uh SJW or feminist or left leaning stuff. Like I'm very balanced with my content. Yeah, the algorithm is treating me well. So I feel like to help out the algorithm, people need to actually check out counterpoints just to keep them balanced. That's if they want to. That's also another thing. Um, but yeah,
Like these guys over here are like distinctly not at all going to be interested in white supremacy, but they do have frustrations with women. All right. And so it's really important to understand that radicalization occurs within community. So it's not just content by itself. Content is going to give people language. It's going to expose people to things.
Dot, are you sure you mean Ayn Rand?
Yeah, this is from Ayn Rand. There's, just to be clear, Ayn Rand probably also used it from somebody else. So I'm stealing a little bit. Ayn Rand talks about this in totalitarian governments. I'm using this to map onto extremist worldviews because I think they're actually similar in the like functionality that they work. So I'm stealing Ayn Rand's totalitarian government and like worldviews that exist within totalitarianism, and I'm mapping this onto radicalism because I think it's actually really similar what occurs here, which is that what we know from radicalization is that people get more and more radicalized as they make friends in the space. So it's not like just like the one streamer's orbit pulls them down, it's the friendships that they make along the way, right? If you've
yeah,
got a lonely guy who's 19, he's always been rejected by women, and he's tried going into the Fresh and Fit Discord, but he kind of gets shit on because he's like kind of weird and a little bit of a dweeb. But then he goes into the white supremacy Discord or space, and he like makes an off-color joke about like black people, and he gets tons and tons of reinforcement. People are like base, haha, giga chat, amazing. That guy's gonna lock right in, right?
Giga Chad,
Which is
W
extremely important to understand
W,
because it gives us a conversation about how we actually undo this, right? So
yeah,
the left will say, all we do is we silence, deplatform, get rid of them, like the far left especially.
yeah,
Deplatform, don't talk to them, don't interact with them, they'll go away. Just keep kicking them off of sites. The problem is that, remember, these people almost never get to see other world views. All they hear is themselves all the time. And so, what's really important, actually, what we ought to be doing is bringing to them discourse, right? We want to bring, for example, blue haired SJWs who are good at debate to come and talk to them, understand some of their frustrations, especially let's put it here. I don't think, I mean, he goes there too. Talk to them, be like, yeah, true, you know, things are tough for men. It's rough
yeah,
out there.
yeah.
True. Women do sometimes have a pretty like standardized expectation.
And that kind of like brings us back to the previous point that I made. For example, Destiny is actually the embodiment of exactly what she's saying because again, I was like with Sneeko, right? And I think Sneeko is actually a very good example of two paths, right? So on one end, he could have been in the center, still being a normal human person, having his own actual opinions and stuff like that, and still doing what he's doing, and definitely still being very successful, right? But because of his association with the red pill and blah blah blah, and he started becoming more and more radicalized. Like you could even see it, like as the months grew by, you could see his radicalization and extremism um getting deeper and deeper, and then now he's into Islam, right? And I feel there's also that pull that's happening with him as well, where occasionally Destiny used to have debates with him, and he would actually kind of consider or reconsider some stuff. So I feel he's kind of battling with that at this point where he's trying to get, I'm psychoanalyzing, but yeah, I feel he's still battling with stuff like that, still battling with those ideas. And we're actually just we're on for the ride, so we're just watching how he's developing and stuff like that. But for other people, right, their stuff is behind closed doors. They don't have that direct pushback to uh to help you. They don't have that one person that's always challenging them. So they're just going into these echo chambers, and then of course, as she mentioned, when you say some certain things and you get reinforced with positive comments, or you get someone to say, "Oh, you, this is really cool," or you start meeting with lots of people and you get like benefits from them. You're hanging out, you guys travel a lot, things like that. Of course, it's going to uh keep you stuck in that bubble. So yeah.
and like what they're broadly preferencing in relationships. True, men don't have any like things that care about like things like mental health needs for men, but also, hold on, my bubble exists, right? And my bubble is very different. My worldview has a totally different worldview, right? So this is why it's super important for these types of conversations to occur, even when they're contentious. I think it's often better if they can be conciliatory and friendly for actually
Mm-hmm.
pulling people more one way or the other, because we're getting people looking for reinforcement in community. But even contentious stuff is at least exposing these separate ideologies and worlds to conflicting information. That at
Yeah.
least, if nothing else, right? Now these guys have doubts. They have to think about this new information. And this is actually something that's super related to like why so many kids who are Protestant raised leave the church as soon as they go to like university or any higher level of education, is because they
Yeah.
confronted with a bunch of information that they were just kind of like lied to their whole life, right? So like the young Christian will be in a class and they'll find out that like, you know,
All right, so we're just going to stop there, and I want to just kind of like add a few things. So, based off of what you're saying, I'm guessing like a solution would be for, so let's say we have all these different circles, right? Sorry, just do this. So we have all these. Let's say this is a. Oh no, it's not trying properly. Okay, so the I feel like an ideal situation to this would be us having circles like this, or us having like diagrams like this that work in such a way that each person from a unique circle, right, gets to interact with other people. So of course we have like, let's say, the red pill, we have the leftists, we have the centrists, we have people that normal people, right, would be watching red pill and centrist stuff. Some other people would be liberal, they get to interact with this and blah 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 blah. Right. I feel um the ideal solution would be a case whereby maybe if the algorithm suggests counter arguments to whatever you watch. So let's say you're watching something on let me see. Okay. Let's say you're watching something on abortion, or you're like, okay, pro abortion stuff or pro life topics, rather pro choice topics, right? And you're getting deeper and deeper into this circle. The algorithm could now suggest something on the pro life end for you to kind of consider, so you're not like completely radicalized on one idea. And the same thing, you can have like an argument that kind of balances everything out. So you kind of can make a solid deduction based off of all the different ideas that have been presented on a various on such topic, right? So you're not just focusing on one and you're diving deep. Same thing with being pro life. You're not just focusing on diving deep on and being dragged into this echo chamber of, oh, this is good, and then you get to the point where like anyone that doesn't agree with you is evil, right? And is the spawn of Satan. While here, you're like everyone that doesn't agree with you has to be cancelled and banned off the platform. And then here, you're not like particularly sure, right? But I feel like in this space, you get there's room for nuance. So yeah. Anywho, I just found that to be a very interesting topic of discussion. Yeah, you guys can go check Not So Erudite out. Uh, I don't really watch her stuff, but I really enjoy like she's usually on Destiny's channel, so I really enjoy some of the things that she gets to talk about and stuff like that. So yeah, all right. Take care, stay safe. Until next time.